Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Narayanam Namaskritya Naram Chaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tatho Jayamudhirayet Nashtaprayashu Bhadreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavate Uttama Shloke Bhaktir Bhavati Naishtiki. Okay, reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 9, Chapter 13, The Dynasty of Maharaj Nimi. I read the introduction? I mean, I could read it. Okay. Alright. The Dynasty of Maharaj Nimi. This chapter describes the dynasty in which the great and learned scholar Janaka was born. This is the dynasty of Maharaj Nimi, who is said to have been the son of Ikshvaku. When Maharaj Nimi began performing great sacrifices, he appointed Vashishta to be his chief priest. But Vashishta refused, for he had already agreed to be priest in performing a yagya for Lord Indra. Vashishta therefore requested Maharaj Nimi to wait until Lord Indra's sacrifice was finished. But Maharaj Nimi did not wait. He thought, life is very short, so there is no need to wait. He therefore appointed another priest to perform the yagya. Vashishta was very angry at King Nimi and cursed him, saying, "May your body fall down." Cursed in that way, Maharaj Nimi also became very angry, and he retaliated by saying, "May your body also fall down." As a result of this cursing and counter-cursing, both of them died. After this incident, Vashishta took birth again, begotten by Mitra and Varuna, who were agitated by Urvashi. The priests who were engaged in the sacrifice for King Nimi preserved Nimi's body in fragrant chemicals. When the sacrifice was over, the priest prayed for Nimi's life to all the demigods who had come to the arena of Yagya. But Maharaj Nimi refused to take birth again in a material body because he considered the material body obnoxious. The great sages then churned Nimi's body, and as a result of this churning, Janaka was born. The son of Janaka was Udavasu, and the son of Udavasu was Nandivardhana. The son of Nandivardhana was Suketu. And his descendants continued as follows: Devarata, Bhradrata, Mayavira, Sudrita, Drishtaketu, Haryashva, Maru, Pratipaka, Kritarata, Devamidha, Vishruta, Mahadriti, Kritirata, Maharoma, Svarnaroma, Rishvaroma, and Shiradvaja. All these sons appeared in the dynasty one after another. From Shiradvaja, mother Seta Devi was born. Shiradvaja's son was Kushadvaja, and the son of Kushadvaja was Dharmadvaja. The son of Dharmadvaja were Kritadvaja and Mitadvaja. The son of Kritadvaja was Keshidvaja, and the son of Mitadvaja was Kandikya. Keshidvaja was a self-realized soul, and his son was Bhanuman, whose descendants were as follows: Shatadyumna, Suchi, Sanadvaja, Urja Ketu, Aja, Purujit, Arishtanemi, Shrutayu, Suparshvaka, Chitraratha, Kshemadi, Samarata, Satyarata, Upaguru, Upagupta, Vasvananta, Yuyuda, Sabhashana, Shruta, Jaya, Vijay, Rita, Shunaka, Vita, Havya, Dhriti, Bahulashva, Kriti, and Mahavashi. All of these sons were great self-controlled personalities. This completes the list of the entire dynasty. Okay, text 1. I'll just read through them until we chant text 3 together. Text 1. Shuko vacha nimir ikshvakutanayo vashistam avratar twijam aryabhya satram sopyaha shakrena pragvritosmi bho. Translation. Srila Shukadev Goswami said, after beginning sacrifices, Maharaj Nimi, the son of Ikshvaku, requested the great sage Vashishta to take the post of chief priest. At that time, Vashishta replied, my dear Maharaj Nimi, I have already accepted the same post in a sacrifice begun by Lord Indra. Text 2. Tam nirvartya gamishyami tavan mam pratipalaya tushnim asid grihapati sopindrasya karon makam. Translation. I shall return here after finishing the yagya for Indra. Kindly wait for me until then. Maharaj Nimi remained silent, and Vashishta began to perform the sacrifice for Lord Indra. Okay, text 3. Please repeat. Nimish chalam idam vidvan satram arbhatat mavan ritvigbhir aparaistavan nagamad yavata guru nimish chalam idam vidvan satram arabhatat mavan ritvigbhir aparaistavan nagamad yavata guru nimis chalamidam vidvan satram arabhatat mavan ritvigbhir aparaistavan nagamad yavata guru. Maharaj Nimi. Chalam, flickering, subject to end at any moment. Idam, this life. Vidvan, being completely aware of this fact. Satram, the sacrifice. Arabhata, inaugurated. Atmavan, self-realized person. Ritvigbi, by priests. Apray, other than Vashishta. Tavat, for the time being. Na, not. Agamat, returned. Yavata, so long. Guru, his spiritual master. Vashishta. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. Srila Prabhupada ki. Jai. Translation. Maharaj Nimi, being a self-realized soul, considered that this life is flickering. Therefore, instead of waiting long for Vashishta, he began performing the sacrifice with other priests. Purport. Chanakya Pandit says, Shariram kshana vidvamsi kalpanta stayino guna. The duration of one's life in the material world may end at any moment. But if within this life one does something worthy, that qualification is depicted in history eternally. Here is a great personality, Maharaj Nimi, who knew this fact. In the human form of life, one should perform activities in such a way that at the end he goes back home, back to Godhead. This is self-realization. Om Jnanatimirandasya Jnanajanashalakaya Chakshurunmilidam Yena Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha. Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Gadamayam Dadati Swapadantikam. Nama Om Vishnupadaya Krishna Prishtaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swami Niti Namine. Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Shatarine. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shiva Sadi Gaur Bhakta Vrinda. Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Hare Krishna. So it's a short purport. And Prabhupada begins by quoting Chanakya Pandit. You'll find throughout all of his purports, so many, not all, but many. He quotes Chanakya Pandit a lot. Chanakya Pandit wasn't really a pure devotee. He was just a very expert, logician, you could say. Very, very nice at presenting different points. If you read Jaiva Dharma, there's a section that speaks about Dashamula, and the first Dashamula is Pramanam. Like, what's your proof? You need to have proof before you do anything. And if you read that section, actually it's quite nice. Bhaktivinoda Thakur explains how there is no way with your material senses for you to understand absolute truth. And then he goes on to say how bhakti can never be explained. And if it's explained, then it's not bhakti anymore. So one may think, why even bother? Because then Bhaktivinoda Thakur says that all you have is these material senses to perceive things with. So therefore, the works of the acharyas is an assistance for you to have an experience of bhakti. So Prabhupada may quote Chanakya Pandit, who's not particularly a devotee, but he has some very nice things to say. And Prabhupada is using this as a tool to establish bhakti, for us to understand. Like here, he's quoting Chanakya Pandit, and Chanakya Pandit is talking about how the duration of your life in the material world may end at any moment. And Prabhupada loves speaking about this, that human form is such a valuable gift. Death can come at any moment. A devotee always thinks of death. Some people don't like to think of it, but it's a fact, and it's coming for everyone, so be prepared. And it may end at any moment. So if one does something worthy, that qualification is depicted in history eternally. Eternally. So there's many things that people have done in the past, historically, which people hold as very significant, like Gandhi giving, liberation to the country. And that's very nice, but it's not eternal. So what is worthy? Because Prabhupada says here, if one does something worthy, something worthwhile, like his time is very short, saving the country is not the highest priority. The highest priority, which Prabhupada explains, is what Maharaj Nimi also was interested in, is he knew this fact. What is the fact? That in the human form of life, one should perform activities in such a way that at the end of his life, he goes back home, back to Godhead. This is self-realization. This is something worthy. This is why we're all here in Vrindavan Dham, hopefully. And this is what our movement is designed to do. This is what the Gaudiya Vaishnava Sampradaya is here to give you an opportunity to go back home, back to Godhead in this one very lifetime. It is true that most people probably will not achieve back home, back to Godhead in one lifetime. It's Kali Yuga after all, and it's very difficult, but it's not impossible. And if you're really interested, and if you know it's not impossible, then you would endeavor your level best. By doing what? By performing activities in such a way that at the end of your life, you go back home, back to Godhead. In Chaitanya Shikshamrita, Bhaktivinoda Thakur has explained that going back home, back to Godhead is not something very cheap. Even Shantaras, attainment of Shantaras cannot take you back home, back to Godhead. That's why Lord Chaitanya in Chaitanya Charitamrita explains how he rejected Shantaras. If you attain Shantaras, you cannot go. You can go to Vaikuntha, and now someone may question, but isn't Vaikuntha back home, back to Godhead? According to Bhaktivinoda Thakur, no, it's not back home, back to Godhead. Because back home, back to Godhead means back home, back to Vrindavan. That's what the Gaudiya Vaishnava Sampradaya is designed, is the purpose of it, is to take you back home, back to Vrindavan. This is something worthy, This is something that we have to really strive for. And it's not going to come very cheap. Krishna is not cheap. He's not very easily attained, especially not easily attained in Vrindavan. Because in Vrindavan, the relationship there is very, very unique. It's very special. It's very intimate, to the point where Krishna even gives himself to the devotees of Vrindavan. It's described that on the level of prema, there are two types of prema. One is Grita Sneha, and one is Madhu Sneha. Grita Sneha is like ghee, like love for Krishna that's like ghee. And Madhu Sneha is love for Krishna that's like honey. And Grita Sneha, I don't know if any of you have tasted ghee. When I was little, I always liked the smell of ghee. It was so nice that I would want to eat it. But if you try and eat some ghee, it's actually very tasteless. It just tastes like oil, like very strange because it smells so sweet. But if you taste it, it doesn't have much flavor. But honey, I'm sure many of you have tasted honey, is very sweet by itself. So Grita Sneha, described by Rupa Goswami, is not sufficient on its own. But Madhu Sneha is so powerful that it's sufficient on its own, And then he describes how Madhu Sneha is the love for Krishna that Radharani has and all of her followers have. And it's so overpowering that Krishna becomes the property of those devotees that have Madhu Sneha, headed by Radharani. Whereas everything else is Krishna's property. Krishna is complete. He's the complete absolute truth. So complete absolute truth means he has all aspects of everything, even the aspect of belonging to someone. Although he is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, he belongs to someone, He belongs to those devotees that have Madhu Sneha, that have love for him like honey. And if you want to go back home, back to Godhead, if you want to go to the place which the Gaudiya Sampradaya is designed for us to get to, then we have to know about all of these things. And knowing is one thing, that's Sambandha Tattva, that's the beginning. After that, in fact, if you read the Dashamula from Jaiva Dharma, out of the 10, the first one is Praman. So the first one is, what is your proof, for whatever you're doing. Srimad Bhagavatam is our proof for whatever we do in Krishna consciousness. This is our ultimate authority, Srimad Bhagavatam. And then after the first point, the other, all the way from 2 to 8, is all Sambandha Tattva. So knowledge is very important. This is the beginning. You understand what is going on. Who am I? What is this material world? What is God? What is matter? What is Krishna? And what is the Jiva? We have to understand these tattvas. And it's very nicely described. Like the second one is Parama Tattva, which means who is the absolute truth? What is the absolute truth? What is supreme? And then the third one is he's the absolute truth, but what does he do? Sarva Shaktiman, and how does he do it? He has energies, and then once it's established that he has energies, then the question is asked, what does he do with his energies? So it's Akila Rasamrita Sindhu. That's the third point. The fourth point, which means he's engaged in relationship of rasa with his shaktis, And then the fifth point is Vibhinamsa Tattva, which is us, the jivas, fragment upads. And then there's mukta jivas and baddha jivas. So there's liberated jivas and there's conditioned jivas. And then comes what is it? Simultaneous oneness and difference. Achintya Veda, Abhinna Tattva, that's what it's called. And after all of these points, finally we get to the Abhideya. So it's really important to understand where we want to go. If you want to go somewhere, just a simple analogy, if you want to go to Delhi, you have to know where Delhi is, and you have to have some purpose of going there, And then when you get there, you can do whatever you have to do. So that's like Sambandha, understanding the how Vrindavan is. And our Goswamis are so compassionate to us. Srila Prabhupada is so compassionate to us. They've given us piles and piles of literature to understand to whatever extent we can, although we have only material senses. Bhaktivinoda Thakur says, with your material senses you cannot understand, but what else do we have? So we read these books, and then we get book knowledge, you could say. Right? But that's also important. It's not the most important, but it is important to have some basis. Then comes Abhideya. Then comes, in the human form of life, one should perform activities in such a way that at the end, he goes back home, back to Godhead. This is self-realization. Because we're speaking of self-realization, I'm thinking of this verse from Srimad Bhagavatam, the first canto, second chapter. First canto is really wonderful, and Prabhupada's in that is really nice. He put everything in there. This is text 21 from the second chapter of the first canto. It's really nice. Vidyante hridaya grantis chidyante sarva samshaya kshiyante chasya karmani drishta ebat manishvare. Thus the knot in the heart is pierced and all misgivings are cut to pieces. The chain of fruit of actions is terminated when one sees the self as master. Purport. This is the first line. Attaining scientific knowledge of the personality of Godhead means seeing one's own self simultaneously. I'll read it again. Attaining scientific, Prabhupada uses the word scientific knowledge of the personality of Godhead means seeing one's own self simultaneously. Self-realization means attaining scientific knowledge of the personality of Godhead. So you have to really know who Krishna is, scientifically. Prabhupada really liked his disciple Bhakti Swarup Damodar Maharaj because he was scientifically explaining everything so wonderfully, And we have to understand. So book knowledge is important. It's part of self-realization. But after understanding, there is Abhideya. Here, Maharaj Nimi is not in Kali Yuga, so he's performing sacrifice. He's performing yajna for the satisfaction of Yajna Purush. And there's no time to waste. So even though Vashishta, his own guru, has asked him to wait, he's kind of not listening to his guru. But it's for the higher cause, because he understands that it's very important for the Vibhinamsa Tattva, the tiny minute jiva, to give his full capacity, to give satisfaction to Krishna, and there's no time to waste. So even though my guru has asked me to wait, I can't help myself, because my nature is to serve Krishna. And that's why he's a great personality, and that's why even though he rejected his guru, nowhere in the following purports will you see Prabhupada saying anything against Maharaj Nimi. Prabhupada is only glorifying, and even Bhagavatam is only glorifying. In fact, he criticizes Vasishtha Muni. Later on, you will find. Interesting, very, very interesting. Because the yajna is the most important. The highest principle, something worthy, doing something worthy is performing yajna for Yajna Purush, making Krishna happy. That is what we're supposed to do. And if you read that section that talks about Vibhanamsa Tattva in Jaiva Dharma, it is described that we are very, very insignificant, tiny, minute particles that are designed, just like Bhagavatam in the 8th canto describes how when you have a fire, you have a huge fire, you may have some sparks that make the fire more beautiful. Although the sparks are very insignificant, but if you take them out, it makes the blazing fire a little less beautiful. Krishna is not dependent on us. Don't have that kind of idea. But He's unlimited, so you can always, to your ability, try and increase how unlimitedly attractive He looks. That's our duty. Our duty is to make Krishna more and more attractive. Not that we can't really do that. If you think about it, you're so insignificant, so how could you do it? You're so tiny, you're so minute. How could you even possibly, how could a spark think of increasing the beauty of the flame? But Madhu Sneha means Krishna is belonging to someone. We may be very minute. Prabhupada has translated this Mahamantra as, O energy of the Lord, please engage me in your devotional service. It's a very straightforward, simple translation, but it's very powerful because you're addressing the energy to engage you, the chanter, in the service of the energies Krishna. Does that make sense? O energy of the Lord, please engage me in your devotional service to your Krishna. Who is the energy of the Lord? Radharani is the energy of the Lord. The one who has Madhu Sneha, the one who possesses Krishna herself. So you find, although the jiva is so insignificant, when it takes shelter of Radharani, who is possessing Krishna, who is sometimes described to even overpower Krishna, then the jiva, being under her shelter, is able to make Krishna look beautiful. There's a article in the Harmonist by a disciple of Srila Bhaktisiddhanta, and he wrote in Jivera Swarupa Hoy Krishnera Nitya Das, right? But he actually wrote in his article, Jivera Swarupa Hoy Guru Ra Nitya Das. This is what he wrote. And then many of the other disciples, they got very upset. So they presented this to Srila Bhaktisiddhanta and said, look, he's changing Chaitanya Charitamrita. He's changing the words of Kaviraj Goswami. And Srila Prabhupada Bhaktisiddhanta said that, no, this is correct understanding. This is proper. And then there's a whole explanation. It's actually a conversation. It's transcribed. How he says that Guru Seva is Radharani's Seva. And Guru Seva is your actual position. You are not Krishna's direct das, You are the das of Krishna's das. Yes, that's what we are. So this understanding is proper understanding, and he glorified this devotee. So why are we serving in this way? Because we are very insignificant. You cannot serve Krishna directly. You are very, very minute. But when you become the servant of the servant of the servant, who is Krishna's favorite servant? Radharani is Krishna's favorite servant. And he will accept all seva coming through this line. So Radharani has this Madhu Sneha. She possesses Krishna in this way. And when we're chanting the Mahamantra, this is who we're addressing this Mahamantra to. O energy of the Lord, please engage me in your devotional service. Not anyone else's devotional service, but your devotional service to your Krishna. And that happens to be the yajna for this age also. You just got to sit down and chant a lot. And preferably with a big congregation together, chanting and dancing. So there's a lot of understanding before the chanting and dancing. There's a lot of sambandha tattva gyan that you need to understand, and obviously we're always chanting and dancing because the sadhya and the sadhana are the very same thing, which is chanting and dancing. But there's also a difference, at the beginning stages of chanting and dancing and the ultimate stage of chanting and dancing. In the end of Jayavadharma also, it's so nicely described how there are different stages. There's Shravana Dasha, then there's Varana Dasha, then there's Smarana Dasha, then there's Bhava-Apana Dasha, and then finally there's Prema Samapti Dasha. There are different stages, and this is in a much higher level of Krishna consciousness. But even in those stages of Krishna consciousness, there's a vast difference of the chanting of Hare Krishna of someone at Shravana Dasha and someone at Bhava-Apana Dasha, or the very end of Prema Samapti Dasha. Someone who's chanting Prema Nam is experiencing a name very different to some new bhakta who's just chanting because he's been told to chant Hare Krishna. So, understanding that, we should endeavor to get to the point of self-realization. And that's where Prabhupada says here, I'll read it one more time. In the human form of life, one should perform activities in such a way that at the end, he goes back home, back to Godhead. This is self-realization. Going back home, back to Godhead is self-realization. We have an identity in the spiritual world, and that should be exciting enough to get you there. You have an actual identity in the spiritual world, and one must have a kind of greed to get there. In the 8th canto, when the churning of the milk ocean is described, the Lord comes himself, and in those verses Prabhupada glorifies Krishna's face so nicely. There's a verse that actually says that greed comes from Krishna's lower lip and affection comes from his upper lip and bodily luster comes from his nose, from the tip of his nose. And in those verses Prabhupada glorifies Krishna's face, and there also he says that devotees of the Lord are only interested in personal features of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, because a devotee understands that without personal features there's not much opportunity for service, for seva. How do you serve the Brahman effulgence? How do you even serve the Paramatma? He's sitting in your heart in a unbiased way. How do you serve such a person? So a devotee of the Lord is not interested in such aspects of the Lord. Rather, he is interested in Krishna's smiling face. And Prabhupada says the devotee is always hankering after looking at Krishna's smiling face, of whose face the bottom lip is where greed is coming from. You can even pray to Krishna's bottom lip. Why not? Please give me some greed for the right thing. And his upper lip is where affection comes from. Such a nice verse. You can just meditate on this and chant Hare Krishna. And that's the activity which you perform in a way that at the end of your life, you go back home, back to Godhead. I want to read a little bit more of this verse from the first canto. I only read one line. As far as the identity of the living being as a spirit self is concerned, there are a number of speculations and misgivings. The materialist does not believe in the existence of the spirit self, and empiric philosophers believe in the impersonal feature of the whole spirit without individuality of the living being. But the transcendentalists affirm that the soul and supersoul are two different identities, qualitatively one, but quantitatively different. There are many other theories, but all these different speculations are at once cleared off as soon as Sri Krishna is realized in truth by the process of bhakti-yoga. This is the key. Krishna is like the sun, and the materialistic speculations about the absolute truth are like the darkest midnight. As soon as the Krishna sun is arisen within one's heart, the darkness of materialistic speculation about the absolute truth and the living being is at once cleared off. In the presence of the sun, the darkness cannot stand, and the relative truths that were hidden within the dense darkness of ignorance become clearly manifested by the mercy of Krishna, who is residing in everyone's heart as the Super Soul. So, Krishna is realized in truth by the process of bhakti-yoga. We have material senses. Our senses are faulty. Whatever you perceive through your senses will not give you realization of absolute truth. But when you engage in devotional service, when you start to act in a way, like Srila Bhaktisiddhanta says, don't try to see Krishna, act in a way that Krishna sees you. Because when he sees you, then the sun is starting to rise. And when the sun rises, all the darkness will be gone. The point is, you're insignificant and you can't approach Krishna directly. So you approach him through his devotee. Why? Because the devotee of the devotee is my devotee. And Krishna will notice you. And when Krishna notices you, then, what does it say? He's realized in truth by the process of bhakti-yoga. Krishna is like the sun, and the materialistic speculations about absolute truth are like the darkest midnight. As soon as the Krishna sun is arisen within one's heart, the darkness of materialistic speculations about the absolute truth and the living being is at once cleared off. This is how self-realization works. It doesn't work on your own strength, and that's why Jivira Sarupa Hoy, Gurura Nitya Das. That's why this is also a bona fide aspect. And now we can understand how Srila Prabhupada was so fixed on this very point. Jivira Sarupa Hoy, Gurura Nitya Das. He went to the West and he made so many temples, and he's made this temple for us, so fortunately, that we can take shelter of. And understanding this principle, externally we engage very, very vigorously in a sense of urgency. Prabhupada is even speaking about how there's very little time. You can die at any moment. In a sense of urgency, you preach, but internally also you have to cultivate self-realization. This is how Krishna consciousness works. And the best way to do this is by performing the Yuga Dharma of chanting the Hare Krishna Maha Mantra with as many devotees as possible, trying to simultaneously give Krishna to others, but also simultaneously cultivating pure Krishna consciousness within your own heart. And actually that's how you can give Krishna consciousness to others, is by cultivating pure, unalloyed, anya bilashita shunyam, no other desire. Bhaktivinoda Thakur even says that self-realization means to forget yourself. That's what he says. This is real self-realization. Completely forget yourself and only serve Krishna. Anyabhilashita shunyam. We're meant to have no other desire. Our only desire is we sing every morning. We're asking Tulsi Maharani every single morning. Radha Krishna Seva Bhavo E Abhilas. Abhilasi. This is the only abhilas you're supposed to have. The abhilas to forget everything else but rather than Krishna. This is self-realization. And by this process, the son of Krishna will rise because you're serving Radharani and he's controlled by her and he can't help himself. So this is the process. By serving Guru. Guru Seva is Radharani Seva. By serving the Guru, you can do this. The devotee is only interested in giving Krishna all satisfaction. If you read this book called Vilap Kusmanjali, in that Raghunath Das Goswami has so nicely described. There's a section where Radharani is feeling so much pain from not being with Shyamsundar. And because she's feeling that, Rati Manjari is consoling her and saying, it's okay, look at this blue cloth that you're wearing. Actually, this is Shyamsundar himself. He's embracing you right now, this very moment. She's saying like this and pacifying him. So similarly now, we're in Kali Yuga and Lord Chaitanya is crying. Just like the blue cloth is non-different to Krishna himself, this Maha Mantra is non-different to Krishna himself. And we're chanting this Maha Mantra to pacify Lord Chaitanya. He's also feeling so much separation. People speak about compassion to the fallen, conditioned souls. And this is very true, but there's also a higher point of compassion to Krishna. In the higher rasas, such as Madhurya, Vatsalya, and even a little bit of Sakhya ras, there is this principle of feeling compassion for Krishna. Because our position is to make sure they're comfortable and they're happy. And by this attitude, by this performance of devotional service, everyone else will naturally get attracted. Everyone else will follow. You know? We're decorating Krishna with the Maha Mantra. We're decorating him so nicely in the altar also. Today's looks like some festival. It's very grand. Anyway, every day is a festival in Vrindavan, so. But we're also decorating him with the Maha Mantra. We sing so many tunes. If you've been to our kirtan here in the temple room, you know, sometimes it may seem like it's very complicated, but if in one sense, when it's a complicated tune, it makes you more attentive. So you start really listening, you know. So similarly, even the deity is decorated with so many, you know, different ways, and that's just to bring your attention to the detail and bring your attention to Krishna. So just like Rati Manjari is consoling Radharani that, you know, this blue cloth, he's Krishna himself, he's embracing you right now, it's okay. Just like that, we should also feel some compassion for Krishna, for Lord Chaitanya, and we should perform Harinam Sankirtan together, you know. He's crying, so you should feel some pain in your heart that he's crying, and therefore we should all come together, day in and day out, chant a lot. Otherwise there's no practical application of understanding your internal swarup. You have a Vraja swarup, you have an identity. This is why human life is so important. You can get here with human life. You can get to this place. You can go to Vrindavan, especially right now, in Lord Chaitanya's age, in Kali Yuga. You can go to the highest place that exists. Who else has this opportunity? And right now this is Vrindavan. So please come and perform the Yuga Dharma, chant Hare Krishna, pacify Krishna's heart, pacify Radharani's heart, you know, and ultimately if you pacify the root, you pacify the whole tree, and all the jivas throughout the whole universe will be satisfied by you performing this yagya. This is highest priority, and this is something worthy, and if you do this, your qualifications will be depicted in history eternally. There's like 10 minutes left. I would like to open it so someone can ask a question or make some comment or correction. Any questions?
Hare Krishna. Thank you for your promotions. As you mentioned that Shanta Ras is not there in Gulab Vrindavan, but I have read in some way the Shanta Ras is also there, like the trees and all the grasses there, they all are situated in Shanta Ras. Because here in Guru Vaishnava Sampradaya, exactly we are not a Brahmana.
Exactly, sorry?
We don't follow Raghavana Bhakti
But,
in our Vaishnava Sampradaya. Do you think that we follow Raghavana Bhakti because this is completely in Shantaras? And how can we enter into Gulab Vrindavan?
you know, Madhavendra Puri, very, very significant, important acharya in our line, he introduced the worship of Radha Krishna. Before him, it didn't exist. And if you look at his eternal identity in the spiritual world, he's a tree? A tree or a blade of grass? I don't exactly remember. I think a tree, like a Kalpa Vriksha tree in Vrindavan. So you could say tree is generally in Shantaras, right? So how does a Shantaras tree from Vrindavan come to the material world and establish Madhurya Ras, establishing Radha Krishna worship? You will find all the rasas are present in Vrindavan, no doubt. Obviously, it's the original place. Everything comes from there. So whatever exists has to exist over there. But the Shantaras there is not ordinary Shantaras. And it's not predominant. Although he's a tree, the predominance will not be Shantaras. Therefore, he can, he's a tree, but he's not just a tree in any corner of Vrindavan. He's a very special tree in a very special place. He's witnessed many, many pastimes, many intimate pastimes, and he knows all these things by being a tree. In fact, by being a tree, he has more opportunity to witness things that even other devotees, even in Vatsalya Ras, could not be able to witness. So, is he in Shantaras? I mean, he is, but it's not primary. It's not so black and white in Vrindavan. There's a lot of gray, or sham over there. Anyway, the point is, and you mentioned about Raganuga, but there is Raganuga sadhana. Sadhana is for sadhakas. It's not for perfected beings. There's Vaidhi sadhana, and there's also Raganuga sadhana, and it's explained very nicely even in Chaitanya Charitamrita. Prabhupada is explained. You read the conversations between Lord Chaitanya and Ramananda Rai, and that is explained. There is a process. There is a way for a sadhaka who is not perfect to perform Raganuga sadhana bhakti and Vaidhi sadhana bhakti. Both are important. Both have to be performed.
As you are quoting from Jayavadharma, but in disciple girls, they said that we should not read Jayavadharma and Bhakti.
I highly doubt they would have said that in the disciple course. If they have, it's not correct. But I don't think that's part of the disciple course to say don't read Jayavadharma. It is a very, 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 very essential literature. Srila Prabhupada was very interested in translating it. He didn't find time to do it. Fortunately, we had some nice disciples of Srila Prabhupada who translated it. It is very important. It explains everything, the whole Siddhanta. It's tattva, it's all tattva, from beginning to end. And it is important to have this sambandha tattva. So, please disregard if someone said that to you. And I don't think they would say that in the disciple course. I mean, read Prabhupada's books. That's what they would have said. Read all of Prabhupada's books. Prabhupada's books is our life and soul. But there is also, after you finish reading Prabhupada's books, Prabhupada's books means when you read Chaitanya Charitamrita, he says, even in Krishna book, he says, intelligent devotees who take advantage of books such as Krishna Bhavanamrita by Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur. He writes that in Krishna book. So, if you're reading Prabhupada's books, you should follow the instructions in Prabhupada's books, where he says, read this book, and read that book, and read this book, he says these things,
Even about Chanakya Pandit. Chanakya Pandit's names are mentioned in Bhagavatam also, in Bhagavad-Gita.
Mike.
Like, as you mentioned about Chanakya Pandit. Chanakya Pandit's name, actually he was a moralist. He was a devotee. His name, Srila Vyasdev, he mentioned his name in Bhagavatam also, in Bhavishya Purana also, in Vishnu Purana also. He's not He is the one who completely changed the Bharat also. When Alexander the Great.
But still, that's true, and we appreciate. Thank you, Chanakya Pandit, for saying all these things. Prabhupada is also appreciating. But it's not of the highest preeminence. But Jai. He's given us wonderful things that we can use as a preaching tool to convey pure devotional service by which Krishna will rise.
At initial stage, people are not...
Mic, people.
At initial stage, people are not spiritualists. So that's what most of the time Srila Prabhupada taught Chanakya Pandit. People like to hear moral things. And then after that, gradually they come to the platform of spirituality.
Prabhu has a question.
Right. Prabhu, as you are speaking of different rasas, so Prabhupada gave us that morning, this rasa, Bhagavatam rasa is very nice. So when we listen to this Bhagavatam in pastimes of Krishna, we really enjoy this Bhagavatam by knowing the pastimes of Krishna and devotees and this one. So Bhagavatam and Bhagavad-Gita, Prabhupada mentioned that you should always try to listen this one. So when we listen, then we feel that we are connected with Krishna. This is the comment.
Jai, yeah, it's true. This is Rasa Shastra. I mean, it's describing Krishna's bottom lip being full of greed and his top lip being full of affection. This is so nice to hear. You can hear. And this is not even the 10th canto. 10th canto is even that's his smiling face. So, it's very nice.
You were giving the example, you were wearing the socks, you were embracing the Krishna, just Krishna is there, he is telling Radharani. So, similar way, when we see this Bhagavatam, we see that we are embracing Krishna and listening to all the things.
Jai, you have very nice vision. Alright, if there's... Oh, Hare Krishna.
Being a spirit soul, I came to know that life is a preparation and death is an examination. I came to know that life is a preparation and death is an examination. So could you please elaborate or explain it to me that what is the meaning of this?
Well, I guess you could say everything comes out in the wash when it's time to die. That's the ultimate. We're doing whatever we're doing to go back home, back to Godhead, and when you die, you know if you did enough, or if you have. Prabhupada says that the biggest danger is to glide into the animal species. This can happen if you don't get prepared to live properly, and it's quite basic. You just chant Hare Krishna and be happy. Okay, if there's no more questions or comments, then we'll end here. Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam ki, Srila Prabhupada ki, Nitai Gaur Premananda. Srila Prabhupada ki.
Can I say only one thing?
Yes, ma'am.
Not in the mic. This is the first time I could follow a lecture completely. The sound quality, I should tell the technique. Mostly Mataji sit on the back, we hardly hear anything. If it is 25 meter long, then 23 is for the young men and 2 meter is for the ladies. We don't see anything, we don't understand, we don't hear anything. Also, I think the sound